If you were watching the last video, you would have seen just a general overview about Christian ideas about life after death. I'm going to explore further heaven, hell and purgatory. So, Christian belief is that death is not something which people should be frightened of, but they should look forward to it, and look forward to a life in heaven where there will be no more suffering and where they will live happily with God forever. Views of heaven have kind of changed over the centuries since the beginning of Christianity. In the medieval world, heaven was described as a magical place with angels sitting on clouds and playing harps. These views are probably based on teachings found in the Old Testament, such as Ezekiel's vision of the throne of God. Another view of heaven can be found in the book of Revelation in the New Testament, with the idea that there will be no more suffering and God will rule the earth. One of the ideas about heaven is that when people arrive, they will see a beatific vision. So this is an eternal and direct view of God which gives people total happiness. Some Christians believe the statement in the Apostles' Creed means that when people get to heaven, they'll be in their physical bodies, because it does say in there, I believe in the resurrection of the body. Many Christians believe that heaven is something like a state of mind, and it isn't really actually a physical thing that can ever be described. So, one of the key things here, for most non-believers, they're not afraid in death in the same, in the way that which some believers are. For people with a religious belief, there can be a fear that however hard they may try, they're not going to be judged as good enough to go to heaven after death. And if someone doesn't believe in an afterlife, then I guess that fear is removed. Keywords, as I pronounced it badly earlier, beatific vision, that sight of God, and the resurrection, the body coming back to life after death. It's not the same as reincarnation, bear that in mind. Key biblical texts here, so mention Ezekiel. If you want to find that specifically, it's Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 25 to 28, for the vision of God's throne. In Revelation, go to Revelation chapter 4, verses 1 to 8, for God's throne in heaven. And if you want to look up the text of the Apostles' Creed, that's the bit that states, I believe in the resurrection of the body. So, a bit more about Christian teachings of heaven and hell. Christian teaching about heaven, hell and purgatory varies between denominations, but very few Christians still believe that these are physical places, such as the idea that hell has some sort of everlasting fires to torture people. So original Christian teaching is that people who didn't accept Jesus as their saviour and follow his teachings will be sent to hell after death and will be punished there for eternity. Hell was described as a place of torture with everlasting fires and burning, and, well, as I said earlier, not many Christians really believe that necessarily to this day. Most Christians today would probably say that hell is a state of mind that is the denial of that beatific vision, that sight of God that we mentioned. So Christian teaching has really always been that if people have had the opportunity to hear about Jesus and then chosen not to accept him and follow him, they can't enter heaven. However, if we come to some Roman Catholic teaching, that heaven isn't necessarily closed to those who've never encountered Christianity. This is from Ad Gentes to the Nation, so a statement from the Pope. Those who, through no fault of their own, do not know the gospel of Christ or his church, but who nevertheless seek God with a sincere heart and, moved by grace, try in their actions to do his will as they know it through the dictates of their conscience, those too may achieve eternal salvation. So, the Roman Catholic Church teach that very few people are actually ready to go to heaven when they die. Although they have lived good Christian lives, they're still not free from sin. When they die, these people go to purgatory rather than to heaven, and they'll stay there until their souls are ready for heaven. People who go to purgatory will reach heaven eventually and are not at any risk of going to hell. So this is another catechism of the Catholic Church, 211. The faithful who are still pilgrims on earth are able to help the souls in purgatory by offering prayers in suffrage for them, especially in the Eucharistic sacrifice. They can also help them by almsgiving, indulgences and works of penance. Keyword, when we say penance, an act to show regret for having sinned. And if I haven't stated already, when we talk about a saviour, someone obviously who rescues someone else. Two interesting biblical texts here. The parable of the sheep and the goats is an absolute must to read. That you can find that in Matthew 25 verses 31 to 46, and the parable of the rich man and Lazarus can be found in Luke chapter 16 verses 19 to 31. Just remember, as a disclaimer here, purgatory is a belief of Roman Catholic Christians, but many other Christians do not believe in it, as there isn't anything really in the Bible about it.